much to my dismay, but that's part of why some of the related revenue generation is actually changing what is economically feasible with respect to waste management practices. So, all right, what are some of our concerns? Big picture, number one, cannot emphasize this enough. Impacted communities have for decades been saying, we're not trying to put you out of business, we're saying keep farming but stop harming. And specifically stop harming in the 5 ways that were identified in law decades ago. This is not, the way that they're generating biogas is not doing so. Now, again, real quick, there are supplements to just covering the lagoon, specifically something, not to get in the weeds, but something called a nitrification denitrification basin that can actually meet those performance criteria. But that costs a little bit more money. And the industry is pursuing this as a revenue generation opportunity, not as an attempt to improve its waste management. In fact, they'll continue to insist that all of those harms either don't exist or are overblown. What I think is ironic on that, by the way, is they've been saying that literally for decades. But suddenly, when they found out that they could make some money off of one harm, that, by the way, wasn't one of those 5 that was specified in statute, they said, yes, let's help with the efforts to combat climate change and capture methane, and that is us being green and good stewards. Well, what they're actually doing is exacerbating some of those harms. So in particular, I'll give you just one example. One of the biggest issues, and in fact one of those 5 specific harms that the law tried to make them address, is the emission of ammonia. And what covering a lagoon does is increases the amount of inorganic nitrogen. It doesn't increase the amount of nitrogen. It changes the nature of the nitrogen into basically a more volatile and therefore threatening to the environment species of nitrogen. So ammonia is the form that off-gasses, and that's, again, one of those harmful respiratory irritants that it contributes to adverse public health. It can also, by the way, come down through atmospheric deposition and impact nutrient pollution in streams. Another form of inorganic nitrogen that this system increases, it's called nitrate. And that is particularly mobile in the soil and can actually affect aquifers more than other forms of nitrogen. So you've got increased threats to groundwater, increased threats to air quality, all because of the decision to cover the lagoons and change basically the fundamental biology of the breakdown of the waste. So again, that's making the problem worse. They're not changing the location of the facilities, so they're going to be entrenching and exacerbating already disproportionate impact on communities of color. And as is too often the case with so much of this industry, there's a significant lack of transparency. So for instance, I told you about this conditioning facility on Highway 24. Well, when DQ was trying to permit that facility, they asked a very reasonable question, which was, where are the operations that are going to be supplying gas to this conditioning facility? And the industry basically thumbed their nose at that. I mean, in formal legal ways, right? In a nice fancy letter, they said, no, we don't think you need that information and you can't make us provide it. So they literally aren't saying which facilities are going to be connected. We've made some educated guesses based on the whole review of FERC files and property records, etc. But that's one example of lack of transparency around this particular system. And these aren't proposals to benefit host communities. The basic pursuit is of the almighty dollar. They can generate additional funds, and they being both Smithfield and now Dominion. And because this is classified as a renewable energy resource, they can tout this as some big green move of theirs instead of what in truth is actually worsening the impact of their waste management.